Hello and welcome to Training Tuesday for August 3rd, 2021. I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary, and we're going to highlight Triangula during this Training Tuesday episode. She's a 3-year-old Morelia bredli that is half of twins. I'm going to give you the play-by-play as the session moves on. First, I rolled the activity stand up adjacent to her enclosure, and then I opened the door for her to go ahead and come out if she wanted to while I got the target and the reinforcer. And I thought this was a good opportunity to proof the targeting because she was climbing up the enclosures, and as you can see here, as soon as she saw the target, she started following it. But then if you notice that little glitch I made, I got bitten by a fly and it hurt, and I had to pull away to knock the fly off of me. And then I re-engaged with her, and she was a sport and she stayed right with me. But then I realized that the camera angle wasn't great for you to see her head. And so I go ahead and I move the tripod and the camera, and she's still stuck with me. She is a great learner, and she's always been really consistent with her training sessions. So she's coming out onto the activity stand, and what I want her to do is come completely out for no other reason than practice. I don't plan to do an enclosure cleaning or anything this evening. I just want her to come completely out of her enclosure onto this activity stand to practice her targeting skills. And then I plan to allow her to stay out on the activity stand for a while and exercise if she would like to. And then I'm going to shift her back into her enclosure. If I remember correctly, the last session, she didn't want to go back into her enclosure, and I had to wait quite a while and try more than once to get her to shift back inside. And occasionally I just have to pick her up and put her away. Oftentimes, once the snakes find out how reinforcing it is to be out of the enclosure, they're quick to target out and slow to target back in, or they don't want to target back in at all. She does a really good job here. Like always, she paused at the target and earned her reinforcement. Now, she's been out a while because I think I fed 12 or 13 other snakes and did short training sessions with them while she was on the activity stand. And now I'm going to ask her to target back into her enclosure. She was on this activity stand at least an hour, maybe more. And I thought perhaps that she'd had enough and that she would want to go back in. But as you saw there, she really quickly oriented towards the target and started to follow it. But then when she realized that it was guiding her back towards her enclosure, she really seemed to slow down. And we had a little back and forth going on here where she would come towards the target and I would move it further away, and then she would retreat a little bit. And I'd bring the target forward and then try to get her to follow it. So we had a little bit of this back and forth until finally, when she rested her head on her shelf, I knew that she was going to commit to going back in, and she does. And remember, this is her own enclosure, so her hesitancy is not because it's strange and I didn't clean it, so the smells haven't changed. It's just because she finds it very reinforcing to be out of her enclosure, and she just wasn't quite ready to go back in. But she does finally acquiesce to what I wanted. She goes almost completely in, but it's far enough in that she's securely on her shelf, and I was able to just move her tail the rest of the way in. I wanted to let this video keep rolling a little bit so that you could see our activity station. It's actually a cat tree or a cat stand from Catit, C-A-T-I-T, it's a company. And we installed wheels on the bottom so that we can easily move it around and use it for the snakes. Next, we're going to take a look at one of our Python regius. This is Amun, and I usually open the right side of his enclosure and target him out of the cave that he is inevitably always in at night. He wakes up, he comes out of his hide, he climbs around a bit and gets in his cave. Well, tonight I opened the other side of his enclosure and I wanted to see what he would do. And I was really pleased with his really quick reaction to the target. He's a little wonky with his targeting skills as far as precisely honing in on the target and touching it. but he gets the idea, and so I reinforce him for that because I was just impressed at how quickly he moved in the opposite direction from what he's used to. Now, this is Sabine, and it's her 10th target training session. She's not even a year old yet, and she's just doing extremely well. No problem at all. She's a Morelia bredli. She's a parthenogenic baby, and she is a stonewashed bredli, which has become my very, very favorite type. Now we're going to look at one of my other Morelia bredli. His name is Castiel, and I really like this session because he was in his hide and he targets out of his hide. And I want him to come closer to the door. I'm not going to target him out because this is only his 10th or 11th training session. I'm really careful to manipulate where he moves his body. If I just asked him to come straight out of his hide towards the door, I don't think he's savvy enough to figure out a route himself without falling. And so I targeted him in the direction of that shelf first so that he could rest part of his body on the shelf before I asked him to target towards me. And he just did an awesome job. I'm really, really proud of this little guy. Thank you so much for watching and for your continued interest in animal training and behavior. I'm really pleased that you join me every week for Training Tuesday. Join me again next week for another episode. And until next time, everybody, please remember, always be kind and love your animals.